You wake up in a chamber that reeks of sweat and iron. Your body is not your body anymore. It is glass, fragile, transparent. A single touch could shatter you into 1,000 screaming pieces. You know this. You feel it in your bones, except you don't have bones. Not anymore. Only crystalline horror, sharp and brittle beneath your skin. You cannot move. Movement is suicide. The servants stand at the edges of the room, frozen, their eyes wide with pity and fear. They have been commanded, never touch the king, never come close. One brush of a hand, one careless stumble, and you will explode into dust and blood and broken light. So they sewed iron rods into your clothing, reinforcements, a cage to hold the glass together. You wear your own prison now, stitched into velvet and silk, and still you tremble. This is not madness. This is truth. You are glass. But there is a voice, distant and cold, whispering from the edge of your mind, you were not always this way. Once you were flesh. Once you were a king. Once you were loved. What happened? How does a man become glass? How does power turn into this grotesque, untouchable fragility? The answer is waiting, and it is darker than you think. The glass came later. First, there was stone, cold, unyielding, a throne meant for a man and a boy forced to sit upon it. Charles was 11 years old when they placed the crown on his head. His father, Charles V, the Wise, had died quietly, as wise men often do, leaving behind a kingdom that was anything but quiet. France was bleeding. The 100 Years' War had carved it open, left it infected, crawling with English soldiers and French betrayal. And into this nightmare they placed a child. He was not ready. No one cared. The uncles circled him like wolves, the Duke of Burgundy, the Duke of Anjou, the Duke of Berry, men who smiled with their mouths and schemed with their eyes. They did not see a boy. They saw a vacancy, a throne they could control, a crown they could whisper through. Charles felt their stares, heavy, hungry. He felt the weight of the scepter in his small hands, the coldness of the stone beneath him, and the silence that followed every question he asked. No one answered a child king. They only watched him, waiting for him to break. And something inside him, something fragile, something human, understood. Even then, even at 11, he was never meant to survive this. August, 1392, the forest of Le Mans. The heat is unbearable. It crawls inside your armor, slithering against your skin like something alive. The sun hammers down through the trees, and the air, thick, rotten, sits heavy in your lungs. You are riding at the head of your army, and every step forward feels like wading through fever. Your head aches. Your vision blurs. Then sound. A man lunges from the trees, ragged, wild-eyed, and his hand slams against your horse's bridle. Metal shrieks against metal, and something inside you snaps. Traitors everywhere. You see them now, the men riding beside you, your knights, your guards, your brothers in arms. They are not who they claim to be. Their faces twist into masks, their eyes glint with betrayal. They have come to kill you. So you kill them first. Your sword comes down. Once, twice, again, blood sprays across your hands, hot and thick, screaming. Yours? Theirs? You don't know anymore. You swing at shadows, at shapes, at anything that moves. 4 men fall, dead by your hand. And then, suddenly, you stop. The sword slips from your fingers, your knees buckle, the world tilts, and you collapse into the dirt, trembling, gasping, drowning in confusion. When you wake, they are staring at you, not with loyalty, not with love, with horror. Your court knows now. Their king is broken.
A mad king is a kingdom without a head, and where there is no head, the wolves descend. They did not mourn his break, they celebrated it. The uncles returned, hungrier now, bolder, the Duke of Burgundy, the Duke of Orleans, 2 wolves circling the same dying animal, snarling at each other, tearing France apart between their jaws, while Charles lay somewhere in the palace, forgotten. But he was not always gone. There were moments, flashes where the glass cleared, where his mind surfaced from the darkness, and he could see them, see the way they smiled at each other over his throne, see the documents they signed in his name, see the way they flinched when he entered a room, as if his presence was an inconvenience, a ghost interrupting the feast. He wanted to scream, he wanted to stand, he wanted to be king. But then the fog would return, the madness, the glass, and they would lock him away again. They did not call it imprisonment, they called it care. But care does not smell like sweat and shit. Care does not echo with his own screams bouncing off stone walls. Care does not leave a man to rot in his own mind while the kingdom burns outside. He knew what he was now, a carcass, still breathing, still bleeding, still useful, but no longer human. The wolves had already begun to feast. January 1393. The Bal des Ardents, the ball of the burning men. They dressed you in costume, linen soaked in pitch and resin, sticky and thick against your skin. You and 5 nobles, wild men they called you, savages, creatures from the forest, covered in hair and madness, dancing for the amusement of the court. You did not want to dance, but when has that ever mattered? The hall glows with torchlight, music plays, the nobles laugh, their faces flushed with wine and cruelty. You move clumsily, the costume heavy, the smell of pitch choking you. This is entertainment, this is fun. Then someone, drunk, careless, curious, brings a torch too close, and you ignite. Not you, not at first, one of the others, then another, then another. 4 men become 4 pillars of fire, their screams tearing through the music, their bodies thrashing, writhing, collapsing into ash and agony. The nobles do not move. They watch, frozen, fascinated. You are burning too, or you should be. But a woman, the Duchess of Berry, throws herself at you, wraps her skirt around your body, smothers the flames before they can consume you. You survive. 4 men do not. Later they will call it an accident, a tragedy, but you know better. This was never an accident. They dressed a mad king in fire and called it a game. You have always been burning, and they have always been watching. Isabeau of Bavaria, his queen, his wife. Once she tried. She would come to his chambers, cautious, her hands reaching for him in the darkness, but he would flinch, recoil, scream that she would shatter him. "Don't touch me. Don't come near. I am glass." So she stopped reaching. What do you do when the man you married no longer exists, when his eyes look through you like you are fog, when he calls you stranger, enemy, demon, when your own husband cowers at the sound of your footsteps? You break. Quietly, slowly, but you break. She took lovers, openly. The court whispered, but no one stopped her. How could they? Her husband believed he was glass. Her husband howled at shadows. Her husband had forgotten her name. She stopped visiting his chambers, stopped pretending, stopped mourning. And Charles, in his moments of clarity, felt it. The absence, the cold. He would call for her, and she would not come. He would remember her face, her voice, the way she once smiled at him, and the memory was sharper than any blade. Love cannot survive madness unchanged. It twists, it rots, it becomes something else entirely. They lived in the same palace, but oceans stretched between them. Two people drowning in different rooms, neither able to save the other. She was not a villain. She was human. And that, perhaps, was the crueler truth. For months at a time, you disappear. Not physically. You are still here, locked in your chambers, pacing the stone floors, muttering to shadows. But you are gone from the kingdom, gone from the court, gone from history itself. They do not bathe you. How can they? You are glass. Water might crack you. Soap might dissolve you. Touch might end you. So you rot. Your skin grows thick with grime. Your hair tangles into knots, wild and matted like an animal's. The stench, sweat, shit, decay becomes part of you. So familiar you no longer notice, but you notice the silence. No one comes. No one speaks to you. No one asks how you feel, what you need, if you remember who you are. You are a king. You are forgotten. Outside your door, France tears itself apart. Burgundy and Orléans wage their war. The English advance. The people starve. But inside this room, there is only you, filthy, wild, barely human, waiting for something that will never arrive. This is the cruelty no one speaks of, not the madness itself, but the abandonment that follows, being alive but erased, breathing but invisible. A kingdom still uses your name, your seal, your authority, but they have already buried you. November 1407. A Paris street runs red. Your brother is dead. Louis of Orleans, your brother, your advisor, the man who held the kingdom together while you drowned in glass, has been butchered. 20 assassins, axes and swords. They hacked him apart in the street like an animal, left his body broken and bleeding in the mud. Burgundy ordered it. Everyone knows, no one can prove it. You are told. You weep. You rage. You demand justice, investigation, vengeance. Then you forget. Days later, you ask where Louis is. Why hasn't he visited? Is he angry with you? They remind you. He is dead, murdered. You weep again. You rage again. You forget again. This is your curse now, not just madness, but the inability to hold memory, to carry grief, to act. Your brother's blood cries out for justice, and you are the only one who can give it. But you are glass, you are fog, you are nothing. So the killers walk free. Burgundy smiles. Orleans' family screams for revenge, and France splits open. Civil war. Burgundians versus Armagnacs, Frenchmen killing Frenchmen while the English watch and wait and sharpen their blades. At the center of it all, you, a king, a ghost, a hollow man haunting his own throne. Your madness does not pull the trigger, but it holds the door open, and the wolves pour through. October 1415, Agincourt. Henry V crosses the Channel with 10,000 men. The English are coming, banners black against the sky, arrows like rain. The mud of northern France drinks French blood by the gallon. Your knights charge. They fall. They drown in their own armor, faces pressed into the earth, choking on metal and pride. 10,000 Frenchmen die in a single afternoon. And where are you? Locked in a room, pacing, muttering. You have forgotten your name again. Or perhaps you believe you are someone else, a peasant, a saint, a ghost. The servants do not tell you about Agincourt. Why would they?
You would only forget. This is the cruelest irony of all. The greatest threat to France is not the English army. It is the empty space where a king's mind should be. While Henry V carves through your kingdom, you are arguing with shadows. While your sons beg for leadership, you do not recognize their faces. While your people scream for a ruler to save them, you are glass, untouchable, frozen. France is on its knees, not because it lacks soldiers, not because it lacks courage, because it lacks you, and you are nowhere. You are glass and fog and silence. History will call Agincourt a military disaster, but the truth is darker. It was the inevitable consequence of a kingdom ruled by a man who could no longer rule himself. The collapse is no longer coming. It is here. The Treaty of Troy. They place a document before you, ink and parchment, words you can barely read. Your hand shakes as they guide the quill into your fingers. Sign, they say. It is for France, for peace. You sign. With that stroke, that single trembling motion, you erase your son. You give your kingdom to England. You declare that Henry V, the man who slaughtered your people at Agincourt, will inherit the French throne. Your blood means nothing now. Your son, Charles the Dauphin, is a bastard, a traitor, a ghost. France is no longer yours to give, but you gave it anyway. Did you understand? In that moment, did you know what you were doing? Or were you glass again, fragile, empty, moved by hands not your own? The faces around you are blurred. Burgundy smiles. Henry V nods. Isabeau, your wife, your queen, does not look at you. Perhaps she cannot bear to. You have become the instrument of your own destruction, the knife that cuts your son's throat, the pen that writes your kingdom's death sentence. This is the violence of broken minds, not what they destroy intentionally, but what they allow to be destroyed in their absence. Doors are closing. Futures are vanishing. A king has sold his kingdom. A father has murdered his legacy. And you, glass, fog, nothing, do not even realize what you have done. Not yet. He comes to see you sometimes, your son, the Dauphin.
Charles, named after you, a boy, no, a man now, with your eyes, your chin, your heavy brow, but you do not recognize him. Who are you, you ask? Your son, he says, quietly, patiently, as if he has said it 1,000 times before. He has. I have no son, you reply, or worse, you are a bastard, a pretender. Burgundy told me the truth. You watch something break in his face, something small and vital. He does not cry. He has learned not to cry. He tries again. He tells you stories. Do you remember when we rode together? When you taught me to hold a sword? When you called me your pride? You stare at him, blank, empty. He is a stranger, a ghost, a lie someone told you once. This is the cruelty that history forgets. Not just that you went mad, but that your madness murdered relationships before it murdered you. Your son stands before you, desperate for recognition, for love, for proof that his father still exists somewhere beneath the glass. But there is nothing, only fog, only silence. Eventually, he stops coming, and you do not notice. This is generational trauma in its purest form. A father who cannot see his son, a son who cannot save his father. Two men, same blood, same room, oceans apart. The episodes grow longer. The lucid moments, those brief, agonizing flashes of clarity, grow rarer. Soon, there are none at all. You no longer recognize yourself in mirrors. The face staring back is a stranger's. Sometimes you believe you are made of glass, sometimes wood, sometimes nothing at all, hollow, empty, a shell walking through rooms it does not remember. Words abandon you. You open your mouth and only sounds emerge, guttural, animal, meaningless. Or you scream for hours until your throat bleeds, until the servants close the doors and pretend they cannot hear. They treat you like furniture now. They step over you when you collapse. They speak around you as if you are not there. They argue, laugh, gossip in your chambers, while you sit in the corner, rocking, muttering, disappearing into yourself. You are already dead. Your body simply hasn't realized it yet. This is the final horror, not death itself, but the slow, grotesque erosion that precedes it. Being present for your own disappearance. Feeling your mind crumble piece by piece until there is nothing left but terror and confusion and the distant, fading memory of a person you once were. You were a king. You were a father. You were a man. Now you are glass. Now you are fog. Now you are less than nothing. And still, somehow you are alive, waiting for the end. October 1422. You are dying. Almost no one notices. The room is cold. Autumn light creeps through the window, pale and thin. You lie in bed. Have you been here for days, weeks? Your body barely moving, barely breathing. No fanfare, no priests chanting, no weeping courtiers, just silence. Your wife is elsewhere. She has been elsewhere for years. Your son is fighting a war to reclaim the kingdom you signed away. He does not know you are dying, or perhaps he knows and cannot bear to watch. A servant checks your pulse occasionally out of duty, not love. You do not speak. You cannot. The words left long ago, and your mind followed. Your chest rises, falls, rises slower, falls slower. This is how kings die when they have already been dead for years, quietly, alone, unmourned. No ceremony, no legends, no final words of wisdom or regret. Just a body, finally giving up, finally letting go. Outside, the world continues. France bleeds, England advances, your son fights, your wife schemes. Inside this room, a man who was once a king takes his last breath, and barely anyone is there to witness it. The glass, at last, has shattered, but there is no sound, only silence. They prepare your body, wash it, dress it, lay it out for display, but there is no grandeur, no procession of weeping nobles, no kingdom pausing to mourn a man who was already gone years before he died. Your son, Charles VII, the Dauphin, the king in waiting, cannot attend. He is fighting a war, fighting to reclaim the kingdom you signed away, fighting to undo the damage your signature carved into history. So they bury you without him. The priests mutter prayers. A handful of servants stand at the edges, bored, cold, waiting for it to end. Your body is placed in a tomb, sealed, forgotten. This is the final indignity. Even in death, you are erased. No songs, no legends, no tearful remembrance. Just a body, processed and buried, like cargo, like logistics, like something to be handled and hidden away before it begins to rot. You were a king, but you are buried like a secret, and the world moves on. What remains?
A fractured kingdom, a lost throne, a son forced to fight for a crown that should have been his birthright, a civil war that bled France for decades, an English occupation that might have been prevented, a dynasty nearly erased. This is Charles VI's legacy. But history is crueler than facts. History reduces him to two words: Charles the Mad. Not Charles the boy king, not Charles the father, not Charles the suffering, just mad. His humanity erased, his pain ignored. His 42 years of life compressed into a single dismissive label, as if madness was all he ever was. But he was also a victim, a person, someone who suffered beyond measure, not just the madness itself, but the abandonment, the exploitation, the casual cruelty of a court that used him until there was nothing left to use. Perhaps the glass was never delusion. Perhaps it was prophecy. He knew, somehow, that he was fragile, that power was fragile, that everything, crown, mind, kingdom, could shatter with a single touch. And it did. We look back across 6 centuries and see a mad king. But if we look closer, if we truly see, we find something else. A warning, a tragedy, a mirror. The question is not why he broke. The question is, what breaks us? What was wrong with him? Schizophrenia, some say. The delusions, the paranoia, the fractured sense of self. Bipolar disorder, others argue. The violent swings between lucidity and madness, the manic episodes and the crushing collapse. Encephalitis, a fever that cooked his brain in the forest heat. Permanent damage, irreversible. Porphyria, the madness of kings,
a genetic curse written in his blood. Poisoning, deliberate, political. Someone wanted him mad, wanted him broken, wanted the throne emptied so they could fill it. We will never know. 600 years separate us from his suffering, and the gap is unbridgeable. No brain to scan, no blood to test, only chronicles written by men who saw demons where we see neurons. But here's the deeper question. Why do we need to name it? Why do we comb through centuries of medical texts, arguing over diagnoses for a body long turned to dust? Does it change his suffering? Does it redeem his tragedy? Or does naming it just make us feel better, as if understanding the mechanism of pain somehow lessens its weight? Some suffering resists language, resists categorization. Charles was glass. He was fog. He was a man disappearing into himself, and no diagnosis will ever bring him back. Charles did not suffer alone. He was made to suffer by everyone. The uncles who circled his throne like vultures, tearing France apart while he drowned. They saw his madness and celebrated. Finally, the crown was theirs to control, to puppet, to drain. The wife who stopped reaching for him, who took lovers, who abandoned him to rot because loving a mad king was too exhausting, too painful, too inconvenient. The nobles who dressed him in pitch and fire and called it entertainment, who laughed as men burned, who saw a broken king and thought spectacle. The advisors who signed documents in his name, who wielded his authority while locking him away like a shameful secret, who used him when lucid and discarded him when not. The servants who let him go unwashed for months, who stepped over his body, who treated him like furniture, like cargo, like something already dead. And the treaty of Troy, signed by a man who could not consent, a man whose mind was fog, a man surrounded by people who knew he was incapable, and put the quill in his hand anyway. These are not passive failures. These are active cruelties. Hands that should have steadied him instead pushed him down. Hands that should have protected him instead stripped him bare. Charles was glass, but they were the ones who shattered him. Society does not just witness tragedy. It enables it, participates in it, profits from it, and then buries the evidence. Charles believed he was glass, fragile, terrified, barely holding together. History calls it delusion. But what if it was truth? Not literal truth, but the kind of truth that lives deeper than facts. The kind that names what we all carry but refuse to speak aloud. Aren't we all glass? Fragile in ways we hide, breakable in ways we deny, walking through the world pretending we are stone, steel, unshakable, when really we are one bad day, one trauma, one chemical imbalance away from collapse. Charles's tragedy is not that he went mad. It is that no one caught him when he fell. And 600 years later, we are still failing to catch each other. We still lock away the mentally ill. We still treat suffering as inconvenience. We still abandon people whose pain we don't understand, whose brokenness makes us uncomfortable. We still dress our fragile, inflammable costumes and call it entertainment. We still use the vulnerable and discard them when they can no longer perform.
Charles was a king, but he was also a warning. Power is fragile. Minds are fragile. Compassion is fragile. And history, cold, unflinching history, remembers how we treat the broken. So here is the question that remains, echoing across centuries. When someone tells you they are glass, fragile, terrified, barely holding together, do you step carefully, or do you shatter them?